What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, the official Cliffy J, and I'm back with another video. And in this video, I'm gonna be giving you guys my top 10 players in Australian Survivor history. And for me, this is only the Network 10 series, not the older school one, just the one that came out, like I think 2016. So, without a further ado, let's get into the criteria I'm losing for this list. I'm looking at their social game mainly, their strategic game, their physical game. I'm also looking at like their domination just on paper on the season they were on in terms of like how many votes that they can votes that they control and different things like that. But I will say this, a slight difference between how I feel about Australian versus US Survivor is that I think that Australian has a much bigger emphasis on physical ability, just simply because the challenges are more physical and it's more challenges that have to be done throughout the season. On top of the fact that I also think that it does definitely benefit players to play a more laid back style in Australian Survivor rather than being a super dominant player, simply because it's such a long game and it's so much runway to get sniped out. All right, now that we've went through the criteria, let's get into some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I got for you guys is Shawnee. I also got Nina, Pia, and Jericho. And for me, with Pia and Jericho, these are players that I actually had in my top 10 before some recent seasons, but due to a lot of really solid players playing recently, they were knocked out. We also have Nina and Shawnee, two people that I've never really had them in my top 10, but I do think that the conversation is there and they are really, really good players. And I understand why some people do look at them that highly. But not going to waste any time. Let's get into number 10. And at number 10, I've got Moana from Champions vs. Contenders 1 and All Stars. And for me, Moana is someone that I just think is a little underrated. And I guess a lot could be looking off of assumption. But when I look at her All Stars game and the way that she was able to traverse the game, make the deep run she did, have control, not necessarily have win equity, but just played a good game overall. On top of the fact that you have her first game where she wasn't necessarily on her way to dominating it from beginning to end, but she did definitely have a lot of control and was positioned well and wouldn't have been going home when she did go home. I just think that she's done enough and is well rounded enough for me to put her in my top 10. But I do see the argument for her being outside the top 10 for any of the people that, you know, are honorable mentions and whatever other players that you guys think are really good. You know, the list doesn't really get too solidified until about the top 7. I ain't gonna lie. And the next player that I am about to rank is George from Brains versus Brawn and Heroes versus Villains. And I don't know if this is a hot take, but this is just my opinion. And it also has a lot to do with this being Australian Survivor. But I just think that he's probably the most overrated player in Australian Survivor history. But I'm going to tell you guys exactly why, and I hope that this makes sense. I think that a lot of comparisons can be made to someone like Russell with a player like him, but it, I just think that he doesn't have the greatest social game. And yeah, we can point to his second season and say, okay, he stepped it up socially, which is good. Okay, he stepped it up socially. But you also have to look at the fact that he's terrible physically, the point that he would never win a final immunity challenge. And the way that he plays the game strategically and even socially, he'll never be able to get to the end without having to win the final immunity. I think that's something that people never really look at. is that someone like him is going to always have to win the final immunity and doesn't have the capability. And that's why I even debated not even having him in the top 10. Because as dominant as he is, as good strategically as he still has made a couple of strategic mistakes, and he also is not great socially. And when I say not great socially, I mean he's borderline bad. He's been on the outs consistently at the beginning of the game on both of his tribes, and I genuinely think that has more to do with the way that he is as a person rather than anything. I know a lot of people want to on Heroes vs. Villains tack it to his reputation, which I definitely do think that has a lot to do with it. But I also think that when you look at the way that he's perceived as like a slimy guy, someone you can't trust, a salesman type guy, you know? So I really do think that his natural personality is going to be hard for him to be someone that's going to be able to truly get all the way to the end, because he is someone that you can kind of let control the vote or get deep in the game, because what does it do going against him in final immunity? You're going to beat him. You can just vote him out. So I really do think that he is probably the most overrated player in Survivor history, period, let alone Australian Survivor history. And the next player that I am about to rank is Mark from Australian Survivor 2017 and Australian Survivor Blood versus Water. And for me, this one was really tough on where to land Mark. And I really do think it is an argument for him to be lower on this list. But I'm just looking at the skills that he presents, and I have to put him this high. He is good in challenges, he is good strategically, and he is good socially. Now, I do think his cast is kind of weak that he was able to truly dominate on, but he did have the knowledge of the game, and I think that has more to do with why he was able to dominate rather than his cast being weak. So at the end of the day, though I do think that it is definitely some holes that I could poke with him, he did show not that many flaws. He showed to just be a pretty technical, good player that studied the game, and I got to give him his credit. So I'm going to go ahead and have Mark at number 8. And the next player that I'm about to rank is Brooke J. And I'm going to put Brooke J at 7. And that's mainly because, yes, she's a comp beast, arguably the best in Australian Survivor history. I personally think she is the best in Australian Survivor history. And she's shown a really good ability to garner the respect socially that you need to win the game. So it's not like a problem. Whereas I think that she would have a bitter jury against her or something like that. I just think that as long as she plays a strong game, which she's done in both games, that I think she would be able to get the win at the end. On top of the fact that in terms of strategically, she hasn't really shown much ability, but she also hasn't shown the ability to be a terrible decision maker. So I'm not sitting and looking at that like, whoa, she's going to just be doing wrong decision here, wrong decision there. Like, we still got to see before we sit up here and say she's bad strategically. So for me, I think that Brooke J should get credit for what she's been able to do, having two pretty strong seasons, especially her first season in Australian Survivor, and just showing a lot as a player that could have a lot of consistency. She is someone that, for me, when I'm looking at my criteria, I think she would lay low pretty well on most seasons until you get to that merge time, because she is so good socially to where I don't think she's ever someone that would go home before the merge. And she's so good physically that I don't think she's someone that could just be easily sent home, because she could go on a winning streak at any time and possibly even win out depending on how deep she's in the game. And she's been deep enough in the game to win out. You know what I'm saying? So I just think Brooke J is someone I got to put this high on the list. And that's just what it comes down to. And the next player that I'm about to rank is Luke from Australian Survivor 2017 and Australian Survivor Champions vs. Contenders 2. I think that Luke is definitely someone that has shown a lot of ability in the 2 seasons he's been on. He's shown the ability to be a very strong comp competitor. He's shown the ability to be a really good strategic presence that can pull off very ingenuitive moves. He's also been someone that's shown the ability to be really good socially to the point where he doesn't just garner enough respect to win over most people on his cast, but also have allies that have his back in the game that he's able to make deep runs with. So I just think Luke, similar to Brooke J, has shown to be very well rounded, also shown the domination. So I got to put him this high. And the next player that I am about to rank is Kirby from Australian Survivor Titans vs. Rebels. And I feel like this is the perfect tier for Kirby, this Brooke J. Luke, Kirby tier. I think that it is clear for me that she is the best of the three. She has the well roundedness that I'm looking for in terms of strategically, very strong presence, in terms of socially, very likable and has been able to gather allies, garner respect, get people to follow her, everything that I'm looking for, and more. On top of the fact that she's built different. So I definitely think that Kirby has done enough in her 1 season to be over people like Luke and Brooke J that have done it twice. And the next player that I am about to rank is Sharn from Australian Survivor Champions vs. Contenders 1 and Australian Survivor All Stars. Sharn is I gotta preface this. I'm biased towards Sharn. Sharn is one of my favorite players in Survivor history. Definitely a top three, like one of my I love some players that are Australian Survivor players. So I can't say she's hands down my favorite, but she's definitely one of my top three Australian Survivor players ever. So I am biased towards Sharn. But at the end of the day, she got to the end twice playing really good games. That's simple. Obviously, I could sit here and criticize Sharn and poke holes and why she isn't number one, but you know what? I'm just gonna show Sharn love and say that she is amazing because she is. And the next player that I'm about to rank is at number 3, and that player is Ferris from Australian Survivor Titans vs. Rebels. And this one is really tough. This is when we get to the top tier. I think I'm very, very confident that this is the top 3. Now, no, I'm actually not. I'm not actually that confident because I actually think Ferris is debatable with Sharn. But I'm gonna go ahead and put Ferris at 3. Extremely dominant player, on top of the fact that he is really good socially and very good strategically. But it doesn't just end there. Like his is not just you just look at it on paper. You gotta watch the season. This guy was put in some dangerous positions and he was able to get out of it using idols, bluffing idols, using social game. He's basically the Australian Survivor's Tony. And he's honestly maybe even a more likable Tony. Like, I like Ferris, man, and he's really good. So maybe I'm biased there too. But at the end of the day, I think we all know Ferris is definitely one of those players that, you know, you got to watch out for if you're on the cast with him. If you're on the cast with Ferris, just get him out of the game. Don't play around with the guy. And at number 2, I've got my favorite player in Australian Survivor history. I'm so mad. I don't even want to do this. I don't even want to do this. I want to be biased and just put this person. I want to be delusional. Oh man. Australian Survivor players are so flawed. I feel like I don't know how else to say it. Like I feel like compared to U.S. players, the top tier, I feel like are just better. Like they have less mistakes they've made, less. But I don't know, man. I just got to say it. At number 2, I've got
Haley
from Australian Survivor, Brain versus Brawn, and Australian Survivor, Heroes versus Villains. And man, you see how when I was talking about um Sharn, it was hard for me to say she is my favorite, like top 3. Haley is definitely my favorite Australian player. That's actually not debatable. It's not a top 3. It's Haley, then I guess it is top 3 because it's Haley, then the other 2. I don't really know. But I would say Haley is definitely my favorite Australian Survivor player. So it is very,
Haley.
very tough for me to do this right now and not just say she's number 1. But it's the funniest thing that Haley is a player that I just feel like continuously makes mistakes. And in the grand scheme of things, even my number 1 has some mistakes that they've made, but that was mostly in their first season. In their second season, they were able to make no mistakes, virtually no mistakes. Maybe it was 1 or 2. I mean, not even maybe, it was 1 or 2, but virtually no mistakes. Versus, I think Haley has 2 games where she made at least 1, but 2 or 3 mistakes that or moves that frustrated me and made me just look at her a little sideways gameplay wise. So, though Haley is arguably the most well-rounded player in Australian Survivor history, very good in challenges, very good strategically, very good socially, I gotta put her at number 2. I think we all know who number 1 is, but let's go ahead and give it a round of applause for David. And I think that the golden god is the golden god for a reason. He is the golden goose. He is the quack quack golden duck. No, okay. No, but he is definitely the best player in Australian Survivor history. I felt that way since I watched All Stars. It's been a while now. Ferris was very good. Haley was very good. A couple people were very good, but honestly, the player that played Australian Survivor All Stars, that guy, that David, is one of the best Survivor players ever, for sure. So I gotta put David at number 1. I think it's pretty clear. He's the GOAT of Australian Survivor. And that's that. That is the end of today's video, guys. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Push the notification bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new lit banger. Peace.